Yeah. Okay. All right. So the topic for the workshop today is communicative language teaching for teenagers. So I'm going to be talking about, first of all, what is communicative language teaching, and then how we can apply that approach specifically to teaching teenagers. We'll just take a slightly different approach to that if we were teaching small children or to adults. So we're looking specifically at teenagers today. So just before we get started, my name is Simone Samuel. Okay, not Simon, not Sam, not Samuel. Okay, my first name is Simone. You can call me Simone. Okay. Yeah, Simone. And I'm going to be your teacher trainer for today. I've had lots of experience with teaching new teachers in how to teach English, mostly in Australia. I'm from Australia, mostly in Australia, teaching them to come to places like Indonesia or China or Vietnam and to teach English in other countries. But also have run workshops like this here in IALF Jakarta for Indonesians who are training to be teachers here, English teachers here. And hopefully the things I can teach you today you can take away with you and start applying in your own classrooms when you get the first opportunity. Okay. All right, so what is communicative language teaching? Now, have you heard this term before? Communicative language teaching?
Yes.
No? Yes? If you have heard this term before, put your hand up. If you have heard about communicative language teaching. Anybody? No? Nobody's heard about this? Okay. All right, so this is teaching you a completely new concept. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I want you just to turn to the person who is sitting next to you. Okay, see the person who's sitting next to you. If you're in the middle, you can just turn to the person to your right or your left, you can choose. Okay. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about to discuss what you think communicative language teaching might be. Okay, so this is a new concept for you. Look at the words communicative language teaching. What do you think this might be? I'll just give you 2 minutes to discuss with a pair or in a little small group of 3 if you're in the middle. Okay? 2 minutes starting now. What do you think communicative language teaching might be?
Interactive teaching, feedback response, interactive teaching between student and teacher. And then what else? Like that, there is feedback and response from student and teacher. So the conclusion is communicative language teaching is interactive method. One of the language teaching methods that yang apa? That can make student and teacher more interactive and there is feedback and jadi communicative language teaching is one of method language teaching number 4. Interactive, exciting communication.
30 seconds more to come up with a little definition or some ideas. What do you think communicative language teaching might be? Another 30 seconds.
Guys, kaki bergerak. Ini juga bukan yang pelajaran bahasa dengan cara komunikasi. Menurut saya, pengajaran bahasa dengan cara komunikatif.
Okay, so do we have a pair or a group of 3 who would like to share their ideas? Anybody? Yep, at the back there. Oh, actually, I might just grab the microphone because we've got a big room and I want to make sure that we can hear you. So I'll just, you can just share over the microphone, that would be great. So everyone can hear.
Okay, my name is Ahmad Azmi Daitullah. I will share my opinion about communicative language teaching. In my opinion, communicative is something that interesting and creative about funny teaching. When we teaching a language to our students, it means that we can teach them with a funny method. Like yeah.
Okay, that's part of it, for sure. Anyone else want to add to this? Anybody else want to add to this? Okay, thank you for that. Getting us started, looking great. Okay, someone else. Okay, add to this definition or add to this concept.
Yeah, thank you this time. Okay, my name is Mr. Radamban. I'm from Win. Yeah, thank you. I have my opinion. My opinion, communicative language teaching is learn about communication, but we use English or another language. Yes, this is my opinion.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Great, we're getting there. We're getting closer. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to, I'm sorry before, my name is Jidaina Dayani, and I have an opinion about communicative language teaching for teens. Language teaching which includes stimulus and response in order that students can get to know how to communicate to each other.
Very good. Okay, very good. Yeah, using the word communicative there. Okay, I'll do one more and then I'll talk a bit more about another one of the women in the front here, for the ladies. Share with us. Add to this definition. We've got a few ideas now. Okay, Ghost, you can stand up.
Okay, my name is Irene, and in my opinion, communicative language teaching is the way we teach language communicatively by stimulating the learners to be more active.
Okay, good. All right, so I would say that all of these definitions they're not wrong at all. There are definitely elements of all of these things when we're talking about communicative language teaching. So I'll just share with you my definition. So communicative language teaching is teaching people how to really communicate. Okay? How to really communicate. Now if you think about language, we don't ever talk about, oh yeah, I want to learn how to speak Spanish. We always say something like, I want to learn how to speak Spanish. We don't say I want to learn how to write Spanish or read Spanish. We talk about speaking it, because when we're speaking, that is when we are communicating, right? Yeah, with one another. We are getting a message across with another person. Now, before, in the past, like way back, I guess this approach to language teaching has been around since the 70s, but really became popular in the late 80s and early 90s, and has been used pretty much in language classrooms around the world since then. So it's not a new concept, not new. Before, in the past, we used to focus on linguistic competence. So by that we mean the grammar, having perfect grammar. That was the most important thing about learning a language. And if you speak to people who maybe studied languages back, people who are now maybe in their 60s or 70s, if they studied a language, maybe they had to learn how to learn French or Latin or a language like that. They won't tell you how that they learnt to speak or communicate in that language, but they learnt the grammar very well. Okay. The thing is, if we want to communicate with somebody, we don't necessarily need to have perfect grammar, right? So we have shifted from having this perfect grammar, linguistic competence, to having communicative competence. And by that we mean the ability to speak and use and communicate in another language. So when we are doing communicative language teaching, what we're doing is we are trying to get our students to actively communicate. Actively communicate. So we have these words. So the guys at the back were saying, doing stuff, making it fun, making it engaging. Doing the words that you use were, being able to use the language. This is exactly it. We want to be able to use the language in an active and engaging way. But there's also some other things we need to do. It's not just about having fun and laughing. You know, I asked you guys just now to share in pairs or in small groups of 3. By doing that, you are communicating. That's a way of practicing. It's not necessarily playing a game and having fun, but it's practicing your communication skills by talking with other students. Okay. So there's a few things we need to think about when we are choosing communicative activities in the classroom. We need to make sure that there is an appropriate context. We need to provide practice. And we need to make sure that it is learner-centered. So context just means the students need to know why they are learning this language. We don't just randomly choose language to teach. There has to be a reason or a purpose for them in learning this language, this particular language. And practice just means providing opportunities to use the language in a real kind of way. Using the language in a real communicative way. Okay. And also using target grammar. So it's not like we don't use grammar at all. Grammar is still important, but we provide a context and a real opportunity to use that grammar in a real way, not just from a textbook. That's really boring. Finding ways for the students to know how to use that in their real life when they're communicating. And by learner-centered, what we mean is that the teacher input is less or minimal. It's more about the learners using the language. Because the teacher already knows how to speak English very well, if English is the language we are teaching. Okay? The teacher already knows how to use and speak and communicate in English very well. It is up to the students to then have the opportunity to practice using that. So we take the focus away from the teacher and we put the focus onto the learners instead. We make it learner-centered. And this is actually great because it makes it easy for the teacher to set up activities. So I want you to work in pairs or small groups. Like that is making you guys the ones who are using the language, not me standing up here and getting you to use the language all the time. It takes the focus away from the teacher in front of the room. And often the answers are provided by the students. So the students are doing activities, and by doing those activities they come up with the answers that they then tell to the teacher, rather than the teacher saying this is the answer to this question or this is how you do this. Okay, so it's a lot more focused on the learner in communicative language teaching. We say, ideally, that in a communicative language lesson, the students might do 80% of the speaking, and teachers would do maybe 20% of the teaching, of the speaking. The teacher is the guide and the one who sets things up and organises things and provides opportunities for the learners to do most of the talking. Okay, and this is very different perhaps to the way that learners learn other subjects, particularly here in Indonesia, very different. But in the English language classroom, important that we have opportunities to practice using English. Right? Okay. So that's just, these are the most important factors that we need to consider. So it's a communicative lesson if there is context and if there's a purpose for using the language. Purpose. So your purpose, when I asked you to work in pairs before, was to come up with a definition. That was your purpose for speaking in English. Okay. There always has to be a purpose for the activities, usually around some sort of grammar form that you are getting your learners to practice. We like to move from what we call controlled practice to free practice. Now by controlled practice, I don't mean the teacher standing up there and controlling everything, not at all. We're referring here to the language. So when it's controlled, the learners might read exactly the sentence the way that it's meant to be spoken. And then as it becomes freer, we might take some words out. So maybe the learners have to think about the verb tense to use, the correct verb tense to use. Or they have to think of the vocabulary to use themselves. It's not provided to them. And it's really free if there is no language kind of provided for the learners to read. They have to use their own knowledge and their own skills to communicate. Okay? So we move from control, we set things up, provide lots of language input at the beginning, and then as the learners get better and they start to learn the new grammar form and start to learn the new language, we can take some of the language and grammar away and leave it to them to think about. It becomes free, a free form kind of activity. And learner-centered, oops, my microphone. Not good. Is that okay? Can you hear me still? Yes. Yep. Okay. And learner-centered, so the student, the teacher will try and elicit information. So I asked a few of you to tell me your definitions that you created. I elicited that information from you. I knew the answer already, but I wanted you to think about it and provide some input. And when your students are working together in small groups or pairs, they are using the language that you want them to practice. Okay? Does that all make sense so far? Yeah? Okay. So, the question now is, what about teenagers? What makes teenagers different to if we are teaching small children or teaching adults? Do you think teaching teenagers is different?
Yes.
Or special?
Yes, of course.
Why? What do we need to think about when we are teaching teenagers? I'm going to get you to come up with some ideas. So again, working in the same group of 2 or 3, I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to write down what are some of the do's and don'ts that we need to think about when we are teaching teenagers in class. Why are teenagers special? What are some of the do's and the don'ts for teaching teens? So working in your small groups again, I'll give you a few minutes to think of something that we need to think about. What do we need to consider?
Lakukan sesuatu yang menarik. Ya kan, melakukan sesuatu yang menarik. Apa yang seharusnya dilakukan? Apa yang seharusnya tidak dilakukan? Such as do something fun, menyelami gaya bahasa mereka. Ini apa jenenge? Terus teenager biasanya kan terus dibuat teman kayak gitu. With their language and be friends.
Don't look at it yet, guys. Just leave the hand up that I'm punching up.
Terus done?
Upside down.
Done-nya?
Just leave it. You're meant to be working your hands, thinking of things you need to think about when you're teaching it. Okay, what are the do's and the don'ts? I'm just trying to think about while you're doing that. Please don't look at it
Giving
yet.
order to serious gitu. Order, perintah, order to serious, apa lagi?
And simple instruction.
Simple apa? Simple instruction. Silahkan.
Leave this, I'm looking at it yet.
Siap-siap.
I'm looking at it yet.
Halaman. Nah.
Leave it, please.
Engkau kemudian kan kita berurutan satu yang terakhir.
Don't look at it yet. Don't look at it yet.
Nek misalkan
Like teaching teenagers.
yang ini
So I think.
Okay, one more minute. Think about do's and don'ts. For now, don't look at it yet. Don't look at it yet.
Lura dibagi kayak gitu.
Bagikan, disuruh bagikan kan? Iya. Oh, leave it. Leave it, tinggalkan.
Don't look at it yet. Don't look at it yet. Hard to say to everybody. Don't look at it yet. Okay, don't look at it yet. All right. So I want to hear some ideas now. What groups would like to volunteer some of that? So first of all, let's look at don'ts. What shouldn't we do when we are teaching teenagers? Let's hear some of your ideas. What shouldn't we do when we are teaching teenagers? Okay, go for it. Let's hear your ideas. What shouldn't we do when we are teaching teenagers? Is it working? Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I want to share about my opinion with our group. That when we teach the teenager, we have to know what they want.
Okay, we have to know what they want.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, in Indonesia, we know about the Roma Irama songs. Ya, masa muda adalah masa yang berapi-api. Whereas the teenager wants that if I want this thing, I must have it.
Okay.
It's mine, like that. When
Okay.
we teach teenager, we have to understand what they want.
So you mean like in terms of topics and that sort of thing, like topics that are interesting to them? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes. Topics that are interesting, very important with teenagers, particularly. I think with everyone you teach, you need to make sure the topics are relevant and interesting, but particularly for teenagers so that we can keep their attention, right? Yes. Okay, let's hear over here. What are some of your ideas?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to deliver our this behalf.
Okay.
Yes. First, consider from terms of what kids want in an English class. First is students will teach like if the class is teacher centered.
Yep.
And then teacher always judge students' assignment in front of the class. And then memorizing vocabulary and something like that. And then from the two, what should we do in the class is understanding their mood first.
Yes.
And then giving assignment from watching movie or listening music.
Okay.
And giving fun games, and then the last is rewards.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and that is great because, yeah, definitely. And the best thing about communicative language teaching is it means that a lot of those do's you have to do. So if you're going to have lots of games and make it fun and really interactive and around topics that are interesting to them and around things like movies and whatnot, well, you do that in the communicative language classroom. This is actually a great way of teaching to teenagers. If you are standing up the front of the class being a really strict teacher, then that's not teaching communicatively. That's becoming really teacher-centered rather than learner-centered. So a lot of the things that we don't want to do with teenagers, well, you don't do them when you're teaching in the communicative way. Okay, any other suggestions? Or maybe over this side of the room. Things that we do or don't do, not teach with teens. Come on, I gave you 5 minutes to brainstorm. Nobody has anything else to add? That'd be fine. No one else?
Ma'am, I will try.
Okay, great, wonderful.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Asif Wahyu. Okay. the tools in what I got from our discussion is do something exciting. It's just like simple instructions, and then sentence being up to date with their mind. It's like their language. We have to know their language, their language.